I see you, I believe in you, and you are more than enough. You're more than, and you're worthy of everything this life has to offer. I can almost guarantee you that they
Welcome to another episode of the Michael Maloney Show, where we take you on a journey around the world, exploring the stories of successful individuals and learning from their achievements and struggles. Join us as we delve into the why and how behind their accomplishments and discover how to live a more fulfilling life. Kyle Stevens, I met you first in Pennsylvania.
in the
God, it's
middle of the
been,
woods.
yeah, literally in the middle of the woods. At a virtual Tony Robbins conference. Just I got invited from a buddy that I met on Facebook. I had no relation to this person before being friends with Josh on Facebook. Went all the way out there, and yeah, like I said, I got the chance to meet you there on that nice, awesome 4-day event. And just ever since then, man, our friendship has grown and continued to grow outward. It's just it's just been amazing to be able to keep in touch with you, man. And you're such a vessel for love and support and encouragement and wisdom. And, like you're that person where if I'm having a bad day or if I'm having a great day, like I'm going to call you and just tell you about it because you're there for me. You support me. You want me to be successful. And I too want the same thing for you. That's the cool thing about our relationship, Kyle, is like it's truly at a base level, a form of love to each other. Like I truly, ever since I saw you, you're like a big teddy bear. It's just an amazing guy. Which, by the way, since I've met you, you've gotten a lot smaller. Good, congratulations, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I'm grateful to have you in my life and excited to have you on today and figure out, what you got going on in your life and just what's going on, man. So thanks for coming on today, Kyle.
I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. And the feeling is, well, it's absolutely mutual. And what's amazing about, how, and it's amazing to me how God brings people together for purpose.
Mm,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I got that same invite to go down and meet a bunch of people that I never knew, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I just
What was the
knew that
same for you?
I
Wow.
knew I had to be there. And Josh
Yeah.
and I had been connected, and I just knew I had to be there. And in the middle of COVID, so I tell my fiance, I said, listen, I feel really strongly that I need to go and break protocol and meet these strangers in the middle of the woods.
Yeah,
I just feel like I
literally.
need to be there. And
Yeah.
from that, the amazing thing is that every relationship forged through that event has had the same connectivity. Almost everyone. There's a few people that have kind of, that are on the fringe, but
Right.
I really look at it and I think it's divine connection. And when you meet
Mm,
certain people in your life, and you just know that there's something special about those people. You have an obligation, I believe, that you have an obligation to force, to invest yourself into their lives for their good, you know?
yeah.
And so, I knew when you rolled in and you drove all the way across the country to get there, I'm like, you know what? This guy, I see greatness in this guy. And
Right
I
back
still
at you,
do.
man. I appreciate that.
And yeah. So, and it's funny, since that day, since that weekend, my life has shifted so much from, leadership in your business role, and in your community and in your household, which is a huge one, being a leader
Yeah.
in your home. Um, it's shifted to be a mentor. And so now I have
Interesting.
people, yeah, it's really been amazing. So I have people from all around the country that call me and like, hey, what do you think about this? I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And some people, have suggested, wow, geez, you're spending a lot of time doing this, and there's really nothing in it for you. And well, that's not true. That's not true because what I'm doing is I'm serving in a way that
Yeah.
I'm meant to serve. I'm called to serve others, and whether it's in business or, like I said, the community, I have an obligation because I've accepted that calling, and I have an obligation to fulfill it now. So yeah, so I love it. I love it when you call. I do check in
For
on
sure.
you. You're so busy,
Well, we
which is
both are.
great. Yeah, yeah,
But no, just real quick, Kyle, everything you just said there about, how you really do aspire to help and give back and mentor people. Just for anybody listening, Kyle is 100% serious and being transparent when he says that. I mean, you are a spitting image of that. I mean, like I said earlier, there's not many people, you, Bill Patterson,
mm,
um, my father, like
mm,
those are you three are the three people I would call in the situation of like, this is chaotic, or I need help right now, or like I said earlier, I just did something amazing. I want to tell somebody who cares about me, truly cares
yeah,
about me, and is going to support and celebrate with me,
yeah,
and that goes like, you're one in a billion. I mean, there's not people like, it's hard to find people who are truly genuinely in it to help you and not get anything out of it. That's so
yeah,
rare. And you're such a quality friend. And yeah, so for business, Kyle has an amazing track record for business, running several of his own companies, general contracting, building amazing outdoor living spaces. I mean, all sorts of amazing things. So if you're in the landscape industry and you're looking for mentorship, reach out to Kyle. If you're just a human being walking this earth and are just trying to have somebody who can help you guide your relationships, your daily lives, all that great stuff, please reach out to Kyle. And like he said, he is getting asked about it a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if some point he does have a consulting fee of some sort. But even then, it's like, what you pay for, you pay attention to. And Kyle's the kind of guy where he's going to deliver. And if he's charging you, no matter what, you're going to be definitely getting some great value out of it. But
yeah.
the point of this call wasn't to like, obviously try to get you a bunch of clients. It's not what this
No,
platform is about. But at the same time, I do want
yeah,
people to know that Kyle is the kind of person where he will just pour into you. And so if you're in that situation where you think you could use somebody like that, he'd be a great person to reach out to. But Kyle, so I know last time we talked on the phone, and you can shut me down right away if you can't talk about it, but you were talking about some new things you're working on. Is that something you can discuss right now, or is that still in the works to where you can't really publicly disclose it?
no. I think we can talk about it, and it basically the backstory, for those listening is that um, I am a good worker, right? I'm the guy that is super creative, that can see a bag of nothing and turn it into something incredible. And I just have a natural aptitude for construction and process like that. And so it's been a gift and a curse because, when you're talented at a craft and you put yourself out there, all of a sudden you evolve, right? And people start calling you, and the next thing you know, you enter into this new chapter where you're no longer a creator, you're now a business manager or a business
Mm.
owner. And there's a huge break there. And truly, I think that's where most companies go astray. And so in my history, I've made every mistake possible. Thank God I've made it through it all. And now I've found myself in a
Amen.
position where I look at things and I understand the business sense of it. And basically, one of the things and this all kind of stems back to our weekend in the woods, is that um, it's about having a forward plan, okay, and knowing
Mm.
where you want to go.
Like a
If we're
compelling future.
Yeah, just setting goals. And oftentimes, business owners, doesn't matter what field you're in, you're so fixed on what's right in front of you that you fail to look down the road and say, okay, well, what happens when I get here? What am I doing then? What happens when I get here? So, basically what it came down to for me was I was offered an opportunity about 2 years ago to um, take a full-time position with a design build firm here in Rochester that is absolutely an amazing company that I mean, I could go on for the entire show about the traits and attributes of this team and the company and the values and
Just an all
just
around out of
just
this
an
world company.
amazing company. Um, just outstanding. And very proud to be a part of the company and very proud to have, been, being involved and having the kind of relationship with the owner. He's a young entrepreneur doing amazing things. Um,
Like
I
how many,
love
do you have any idea like what maybe the yearly revenue of this company would be just to give
they,
listeners an
they're
idea?
they're a 20 million plus company,
Wow. So
you know.
yeah, how many
Yeah.
employees would you say, Kyle?
I would say we're roughly, there's two divisions. There's design build and then there's maintenance division. And I think between both sides of the company, there's probably 180 employees. Um,
Yes. Okay.
so this is a big operation. And
Sure.
coming from a smaller company where my company, at its best, maybe $2-3 million in revenue, um, with big company problems, right? To go to a company like this where you have horsepower, like, okay, we need to buy 30 loaders, you go buy 30 loaders. I mean,
Yeah. A lot
just
of momentum.
horsepower. All right.
Wow.
Well, with that momentum comes, a huge responsibility to steering the ship. And so I've been involved there for the last 2 years and loved it, love everything about it. But as I have grown into my role there as a senior designer and doing sales, with the ultimate flexibility, I've struggled with a little misalignment because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been I've run my own company for 35 years. I've had multiple businesses, and I was finding myself spending more time, investing more time in this business and not really pursuing what I really think God has kind of tracked me to do, which is a lot more of what we do, you and I.
Interesting.
A lot
Okay.
more of that pouring into other people. And then realistically, because I'm getting older, you know, I've got a
We
10-year
all are every
plan.
day, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a 10-year plan. I'd like to retire. And, after investing 2 years there, I've realized that, okay, I love my involvement, but I'm not tracking for success to hit my goal. So my wife and I, a lot of prayer, a lot of conversation, and in talking with the owner, we've just changed my role there a little bit. So I've pulled back. In the process of pulling back, probably take the rest of the year pulling back to just an independent sales consultant for him, and
Oh, there you go.
then returning back to my, running my company properly because my company's still been in operation, but just kind of like parked because my time has been so
Sure.
distracted.
So was it like a
So
lack of fulfillment, Kyle? Like, is that what like,
yeah,
even though you were doing a lot, you just didn't feel fulfilled?
yeah, there's a lot of dynamics that they're more personal convictions than they are, there were no problems, but it was more personal convictions for me. I just felt misaligned. And I learned a long time ago that, if God's prompting me to move and and take a step of faith, because it doesn't make any sense, if anyone knew the backstory about this, the opportunities, it wouldn't make any sense for me to leave this role I have with this company because it's a great job. However, I learned that when God is prompting me to move, I need to act. I don't need to sit there and vacillate and ponder the what ifs. I need to just get up and take a step of faith.
Wow.
And
First of
what I've
all, good for you, man, for recognizing that and being willing to jump on it. Because there's so many people in their lives that never make the move.
right. So, and I'll tell you why I am not willing to sit on my hands. All right, is because about 15 years ago, I was getting that same prompting, and I will go into all the details about it because it's kind of a long story. But I mean, incredible signs, indications, big flags. It's time to make a change. and I got stuck in the what ifs and vacillated and just didn't take that step of faith.
You
And
sure you
this,
don't want to just briefly step into it? I mean, and if you don't want to,
yeah,
that's fine,
no,
but it
I
might
can.
help
No,
some
that's
people.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, so about 15 years ago, my company, Stonewood and Waters, we had grown to quite a large company and had a lot of great people employed, but we were running into challenges. We had lost a couple really big snow contracts. I was pretty much, you know, at a point, I was going through a divorce. I was pretty much at a point where, or I was leading to divorce. And I was at a point where I was just broken. I just didn't know which way to go. I kind of lost my way. And the whole time, through this process leading up to this, I kept having this resounding, um, message that, this feeling that it's time to get out of the boat. Specifically, it's time to get out of the boat.
So you remember
And
having like an actual feeling, like it wasn't.
oh yeah, like
So it
so I'm
wasn't
a
necessarily
spiritual,
the like. Okay,
yeah.
wow, that's
So I mean, it's time to make a change. It's time to get out of the boat. That's exactly what I was feeling. Now I'm a very spiritual guy, and we can talk about that as well. But I was feeling this urge that I need to make a change. I need to make a change. And so I didn't really share that with too many people. And time had gone on, and doors kept closing. Like in my life, I've been given favor where opportunity pours in and doors open.
sure.
Well, I was finding that doors were closing and things were getting tighter and so instead of taking pause and really looking at it and evaluating, I just worked harder, which complicated more things on the other side in my marriage. And it was a slow, grinding, painful experience. And somewhere through this journey leading up to this 15-year mark, uh, I had a guy call me. He sent me a text actually. Contractor, kind of just somebody that I've known for years, but more of a casual friendship than anything. And
Sure.
he calls me, or he sends me a text at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he says, "Where are you going to be today? I need to come and see you." And I'm like, "Wow, I'm going to be at my office at 9 o'clock if you want to stop by." I was up when he texted me because I'm laying there with anxiety, thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? All this stuff, anxiety usually hits me between 2 and 4 a.m. And so at 7 o'clock, he blows in the door of my office and he's like, I gotta talk to you. And I was like, okay, sit down, and he said, I'm like, this guy's crazy. He's like, he said, I was at a leadership conference down in I think he said he was in Georgia over the weekend. This was a Monday. And I'm in the conference and I felt like God said to me, you need to call Kyle and ask him when he's getting out of the boat. So he couldn't wait to call. So he literally got off the plane and drove right to my office to ask me this question. It's time to get out of the boat. What does that mean? And
And now that I just got goosebumps, by the way. Now that just made me remember the entire story. So
you do
those were the
remember.
words that you were earlier. You
Yeah,
said I need to get out of the boat, and you were thinking those thoughts
I was thinking
before,
those. Yep. And
and then
so,
this gentleman came up to you and said it's time to get out of the boat.
yeah, he
Er,
said,
Good.
God wanted me to ask you, when are you going to get out of the boat?
Oh my
Cracked me.
God.
Okay. I mean, literally tears in my face and I'm, oh my gosh, and I shared with him what I was wrestling with. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. Right. So time goes on and I don't know how long it was, but it was quite some time. Time evaporates, right? So
Yeah.
I have this amazing guy who lives in Florida, who is now he's a pastor of a church down there. And it was somebody I tried to hire. He used to work for John Deere Landscape, and he's a rock star. The guy's a rock star. And I tried to hire him. He didn't come on board. He ended up taking another job, but we became like instantly connected from that job interview. And he's like my go-to person. He's like the guy that I can call whenever, like you call me, right?
Yeah, right. Like
He's
you and
my
I.
guy. So I don't talk to him very often, maybe once every 5 months, 6 months, I mean, time goes by. And so time had elapsed since this first gentleman had come in, and I get a phone call from this guy, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I've been on my knees all morning today praying for you, and I got to ask you, when are you getting out of the boat?" I said, "What?"
So a second guy.
Second guy.
Oh my
So
gosh.
again,
And that's not like common terminology either.
no, very specific.
Yeah.
So he says, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It was overwhelming to me. The idea of taking a step of faith and, you know, all my eggs in one basket and just surrendering and doing something, whatever. I don't even know what else would I have done. So, and all of the responsibilities that go along with that, with carrying staff and their families. I had guys that worked for me for 24 years. I mean, just,
Wow. Yeah.
long-term people that I revere. And as well as, multiple locations and expenses and all that. What do you do? So more time elapsed, and I was doing a project with this guy at a church actually, and we're doing this outdoor living project, and we were having a conversation, and he just started to pour into me with words of wisdom and just giving me insight, and I felt really compelled to share that story with him. And he told me, he goes, he said, if God is telling you to move and you don't move, it doesn't mean that he's going to forget about it. He said, if you don't move, he's going to move you. And if he tells you to
Mm.
get out of the boat and you don't do it, he's going to capsize the boat because he wants you out.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, so it all made sense because of all of these doors closing through this process and the critical nature, the critical state that I was in. And
Unreal.
with divorce, now I'm in divorce, and just, oh my gosh, it was so bad. And um, so he said, well, it's an action plan. Make an action plan. First, you got to get up, and then you got to walk to the edge, then you got to throw one leg over, then the other leg over, and then you take your leap of faith. Those are all directives. Those are all calls to action. So make a list. Just project manage it. That's what you
Yeah.
do.
Just move.
Like, God,
Wow.
I never had gotten to that point. So I'm like, okay, well, instead of it being swirling around, I just started bulleting things out. So I said, well, it was in the fall. I'm sitting on this trailer, and we're talking, and he said, get out a piece of paper and write down 3 names of companies that you would consider selling your business to. Well, in my area here in Rochester, there weren't really that many firms that I would have been able to really fit in with and, would have been a good fit. But there were 3 that I did put down, and marked them down, folded it up, put it in my pocket. And he said, now, first cost of action is you got to call those companies and tell them what's going on and tell them where you're at and see if they're interested. Okay. So he's kind of mentoring me through this process. This is the part that's crazy. The next day, the next morning, or maybe it was even that evening, I get a phone call from this colleague, business owner, big company here in Rochester, and he said, hey, my dad and I'd like to get together and have breakfast in the morning. We'd done a lot of mutual plowing together and things like that, so it wasn't a big surprise. So I thought, yeah, sure, sounds great. So we sat down, met him, and he said, listen, we want to cut to the chase. We want to buy your business.
And this, you don't think that just got through the grapevine or something that, hey,
No, I
Kyle's
never
talking to these
share.
companies?
You don't share that. If you're in trouble, you don't share that because it brings the piranhas out and they just cannibalize
Yeah,
it.
right.
So you don't
Right.
share that stuff you're carrying inside, right? This was all
Yeah,
internal.
totally.
So
Wow. So they
I
just out of
take
the
that
blue, basically that
yeah,
next day ask you to get
the
breakfast.
next
Holy
day I
shnikes.
pull the paper out and they're the number one name on the list. And I showed it to him. I said, okay, well, I'm okay, let's do it. Well, long and short of it, that didn't happen. Okay, it didn't materialize, didn't go anywhere. Um, but the next company on the list was one of my subcontractors. He did. He called me up and
Mm.
said, listen, I need you to design for me. I'll absorb your whole team. Come and work for me, and let's do great things. And basically, I had been praying for a season of rest and provision. I mean, we're way in the weeds now on this story, but I've been praying for a season of rest and provision because I literally, with the divorce and all of that, I couldn't take any more. I couldn't bear anymore.
But you
And
had through the whole thing, would you agree? It seems like you had faith in God and like you just continually went to Him.
yeah,
Because I mean, but the fact that you're praying for that, for what you said, I'm sorry, you said rest
rest
and what?
and provision. Rest and provision.
Provision. Which
Provision. I
provision does
needed
that mean? Like an opportunity to like
no,
catch yourself, or
no, provision is it's a way to sustain my family. Okay, provision like
okay,
I need provisions. I need to be able to sustain my family. I need to be able to keep a roof over their heads. I need to be able to pay my bills, and I need to be
sure.
able to sustain what I have while I'm resting, while I'm recovering. Bless you.
Thank
But
you, thank you.
so and that's a tall order when you have a big company and you got a lot of
Yeah.
expenses and all that stuff. Well, this young guy, he basically I told him how much I needed to make a month, or a year to cover those bills, and and he paid me that. That was he covered it.
Wow,
So
what a blessing.
I had a season of rest and provision, right? And the week after my divorce finalized, that same person, I was on cloud nine. I felt so good. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe the amount of weight I was carrying, with the stress of the divorce. And oh my gosh, it was
Sure,
so
I
bad.
can imagine.
So I was free. I felt so good. And I, got things going on. I'm working away, and I get a phone call from this friend of mine in Florida. I haven't talked to him in a year. And he goes, I don't know what's going on, but I want you to know my niece hit the floor at 4 a.m. for you, and I've been praying for you all morning. And I'm like, well, I don't understand what you're saying. He goes, well, something's going to happen, and I want you to know that, God's got your back. I'm like, well, that just sucks. I'm having a freaking
Yeah,
great day. Now I got
yeah,
to, I'm 1 week out of hell. Now what, I'm like, oh my gosh. I
yeah.
literally
What's
hung the
coming
phone.
now?
I hung the phone up, right? And in comes this young guy that I had joined forces with. As soon as I hung the phone up, he walked in the office. He goes, "Hey, listen, you know, we're gonna part ways." I
What in the
was
hell?
just like, "You got to be kidding me!" But you know what? What I realized is that he was that carnivore, and he had taken all the things of value that he could take from me. My systems, my tools, my customers, my staff, and he was about to have to cut me a huge commission check, and it made sense from a
Mm,
business perspective for him to, you know. But what a gift. What a gift. I left there. I was like on pins and needles. I was so excited because now for the first time I was free. I was free
even at
from
that time,
that moment. I was free
you really.
because
So when that when
yep,
that when that happened, you were accepting of it. You're like, bring it
I
on.
was so happy because now all
Wow.
of a sudden it took years to get here, but I had clarity in what I'm to do. And
But
that
that
is,
speaks volumes of your self-assurance and self-confidence. I mean, most people coming out of the divorce, selling their
yeah,
business, and then being told that stuff, most people would play victim and be like, what in the hell? Why is this happening to me? Why me?
right.
And then they'd go home and crawl into a ball and then just give up. But
Yeah.
you just had that belief inside of you. And do you think that might have been like the divine energy, like from God, like
Oh, without
pushing you
question.
forward throughout
Yeah.
that?
I mean, we've talked about this stuff, but so, you know, through this whole time for the last 22 years, I start my day picking I used to do 10. Now I've scaled it down, but I pick 5 things every day. We've shared about this I told you about daily gratitude when we were
Damn right.
in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I
And
share about this all the time, and I always make sure to give you credit too. I always say my
good.
good buddy Kyle, um,
We
for
need to
sure.
make an app. You and I need to make a gratitude app. And I got it all thought out. I just don't know how to
I like
pull
it.
it together. But so because I constantly am filling my bucket on a daily basis, my emotional bucket with things that I'm grateful for. And after time, you get very granular with it, I mean,
Okay,
if
so
I
let me
were to
stop
add,
you quick, Kyle.
yep,
I know you and I know what that means and how that works, but and a lot of my listeners probably know too because I've talked about it. But at the same time, there's probably quite a few that don't know what we're even talking about. So can you? And it's a very simple exercise. So could you
yeah,
explain what you mean by your gratitude
well,
exercise?
100%. So 22 years ago, I realized that I was living my life out of expectation versus appreciation. Won't go into all
Which
the
is so easy to do.
dynamics. Yeah, it's very,
Oh my
oh
gosh.
my gosh, you have high expectations of your staff. You have high expectations of your clients. You have high expectations of your wife. You have high expectations of your husbands, your children. I mean, but how often do we purposely take time out and look for those little things that we can be grateful for in their lives? So
Mm.
when you take all of that stuff and you put it together, especially as a business owner, which is, man, it is a challenge to be a business owner because everybody is taking from you. All right. And if you're a spiritual person, and as I am, what I found is that I was the guy that only sought God's help when I was in a problem and when I had a crisis, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yep.
made a poor decision and I found myself in the weeds what am I going to do? God, if you could only just help me get out of this. And one day I came to realize that I am the guy that only calls on God's help when I have something heavy to move. I'm that friend that only calls when he's got to relocate his apartment or move a fridge because I got a truck.
Yeah.
All
God,
right.
that's an interesting analogy,
And I'm like,
but it's so
gosh.
valid. Huh.
And then I
Yeah.
started thinking about, okay, and you can put this into any perspective. If you don't believe in God, you believe in Allah, you believe in higher power, you want to call it the birch, the mighty birch. I don't care what it is that you believe in. It's just this principle reigns true. We deserve nothing. We're surrounded by so much beauty and opportunity and blessings. We're so surrounded with opportunity and things to be grateful for, but yet we find ourselves transfixed on the fact that it took 3 extra seconds for the Keurig to make our coffee,
Yeah.
or or
Yeah.
so and so down the street hasn't cut his lawn in 3 days, or you know what?
Right.
Why doesn't the
It's
garbage come
ignorance.
on the same day? And you get so transfixed on all of these problems,
Yeah.
find yourself stacking and stacking expectation. And
Mm.
after a while, what happens is that pile gets so big of unspoken expectations that when you get home after a long day, the kids are yelling and screaming, the house is a mess. Your wife gets home from work and says, "Hey, can you help me with the dishes?" And the pile comes down and you blow your top and you're not
Yeah.
giving your family your best, right? Everyone's guilty
Wow.
of it. No, everyone's guilty of it. But I started thinking at this point, I started thinking about I come from I'm very lucky to have a really solid family. And my father, who I lost 16 years ago, was one of my best friends. And I started thinking about, how all he wanted to do was be involved in my life. All he wanted to do was, hey, what did you do today? What did you learn? And then once I had children, I'm looking at these kids, and you can relate to this. You get home and you're so excited to hear about what they did. What did they experience? Did they walk today? Did you hit the ball? Because
Yeah.
it's all new and you just want to see them thrive, right? Well, it's no different with God, the relationship between God and us. All right?
Interesting. Yeah.
He's our Heavenly Father. And all he wants to do is be involved. He's always there to help us if we need it. But, it requires you actually looking to him for help.
Mm.
So I realized, oh my gosh, this has been a one-sided relationship. What kind of a friend am I?
To
When
God.
all
Yeah.
God, when all I call on is when I'm in the shit. And it's just it's not healthy. It's not a healthy relationship. So I said, okay, I got to change this. Well, I got to change this immediately. And I made a pact with myself that every day I'd start my day by picking 10 new things in my life that I take for granted. And I'd wholeheartedly thank God for those things. And I used to jot them down. And then so that's how it started. And I would never ask of anything for myself again. All right. And I could ask for, other people, but I wouldn't ask for anything for myself because God already knows what I need. He already knows what I'm struggling
Ooh.
with. He already knows what I need. So I would start every day. And the secret is that you try to avoid repeats, right? So every day you're picking 10 new things. 10 days, it's 100 things on a list. It's nothing. It's so easy. Okay. Now, each day you can be thankful for your wife, your kids, your family, your job, whatever it is, over and over and over again, but they don't count as 10 new things. You have to find 10 new things every day. And what I found was that in a world where everything is taking from me emotionally, spiritually, everything's being taken from me. This is the only way for me to fill myself back up so that I'd have something in my tank to be able to give my family at the end of the day.
Wow.
And so since then, I've changed it because people are soft. People, I don't want to say it like this. People are a bunch of punk ass bitches. That's what my wife would say. All
Yeah.
right. They have no ability to commit to doing anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's
Like diets
pathetic.
don't work. I mean, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. All right. All right. Perseverance. All right. So I've changed it now, and now this is a new platform. You pick 5 things, okay? Not the 10, all right? Let's just try to do 5 every day. And if that's too hard or if that's a little bit too much for your delicate nature, you can do 3, all right? But you pick something every day, all right? And you write it down, and then you also give yourself credit for the wins in your life. Because as entrepreneurs and as leaders, we accomplish so much, but very seldomly do we ever say, holy mackerel, man, you did a great job today. We don't do that. What do?
True.
Man, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. We never give ourselves credit for the things we've accomplished, right? So I try to
Well,
mark
I
those.
like what you said, Kyle, about how, as entrepreneurs and just everyday life livers, people take from you, and that's just how it is. Like in life, if you want to live, you have to be able to put something out. You have to have an output, right, to be able to make money or to keep your family alive or whatever it may be. So it's natural, but I think where most people go wrong is they don't implement an exercise like what you're doing here, to where, like you said, you refill your tank. It's just setting it up in your mind, realizing, hey, I'm giving all day. I'm giving all day. I'm giving all day. How do I keep myself replenished, rejuvenated? Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to share something I'm passionate about with you. If you're someone who is constantly striving for personal growth and loves surrounding yourself with other motivated individuals, you're going to want to hear about this. Check out growthgroupinc.com. This is an exclusive community made up of high achievers and dynamic entrepreneurs just like you. It's a space where like-minded individuals come together, collaborate, and support each other on their own journey to success. Growth Group is more than just a community, it's a collective mindset, a commitment to getting better every single day. We believe in the power of connection, collaboration, and constant growth, and we're confident that being part of this community will give you an unparalleled advantage on your path to success. So take a moment, visit growthgroupincorporated.com, and join us as we elevate our lives together. Trust me, this is one investment in your future you will not regret. Now, let's get back to our conversation.
So that's exactly it. And I like to encourage people, right? I'm trying to change some of my words around it. I'm not telling anybody anything. I'm trying to encourage people to consider. My wife is working wonders on
Well,
it.
you're so passionate about it. You do tell people that's a good thing, man.
So there's multiple levels to this platform too. Now I've evolved it quite a bit, and you're going to love this. But so
Awesome.
I'm going to spin back to my story. Okay, roll it back, and we're way off track. But so don't forget.
Dude, no, we're
things,
perfectly on track. By the way, you keep saying you've said that a couple times. This is exactly what we're looking for.
Well, so that day when I left, the reason why I wasn't in a pit of despair. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't have a little surge of anxiety there, right? But
I'm sure.
I'm like, wait a minute, I'm good, I'm free. And I got excited because through all of those conflicts, I finally realized that I was where God wanted me to be. I was out of the boat. My company, I didn't have staff any longer. I had pretty much parked all of that and kind of put it on hold. The company's still active, but it's a placeholder, right?
Sure.
I got through my divorce. My kids were good. We had a plan. Everything was where it needed to be, and I was free. Thank you, God. And so what next? Well, what I always have wanted to do with my business is design and manage and not carry all the staff and to be able to work with young entrepreneurs and help them through some of the hurdles that I've had to deal with. And now I'm not saying that I'm an authority on any of this stuff. It's just I've done so much of it in my life that I know how to work through the process, right?
See, and at the same time, you're awfully humble, Kyle. I mean, and I'm the same way. Oftentimes, I've had to learn to kind of own myself more. You are an authority. I mean, you've been through a lot, and
I appreciate that.
You've got some amazing attributes, and the quality of work you put out is at the top of the industry. So, I mean, you are an authority. So, I challenge you to look at it differently. But I get what you mean.
Yeah. Well, and that was something else that I wrestled with too, with going through Tony Robbins, which I highly encourage listeners to experience. That is,
Amen. UPW.
I realized that, that, man, I am more than enough. I am worthy, right? Because I think we all struggle with those things. I'm not good enough. They're going to find out I'm a phony, or who am I? I'm an imposter, right? I'm not good enough. I'm not handsome enough or pretty enough, or I'm not in good enough shape, or I'm not worthy of being successful. Oh, those lies, and where those come from, I don't know where they come from, but they creep in. And as an
I think you're right, though. They're common.
Yeah, I can't. You could pretty much walk up to any stranger on the street, and if you tell them, you know what, I see you, I believe in you, and you are more than enough. You're more than enough, and you're worthy of everything this life has to offer. I can almost guarantee you that they will stop in their tracks and it will crack them like a walnut. Okay? Because I truly believe that we all, in all walks of life, struggle with that. And it's a plague in our society. And by filling your emotional bucket and being true to yourself and being the best steward of the responsibilities, we all fail. We all fail. but being the doing
100%.
the best job you possibly can, and then when you drop the ball, no excuses, extreme ownership, and you just own up to it, and you pick up the pieces and you try your best not to do it again. So, rolling back, I left, started up KDS Design Studios. That day, I started KDS Design Studios,
This
and
was the day
that was the
you
day
were
I left that
told by your partner,
yeah,
we don't, you know,
parting ways. And Stonewood and Waters is the parent company, and they are still it's still an active corporation. But I found that it was just incredibly successful. That platform is incredibly successful, and when I was offered this opportunity to take this position with this other company, now we're coming full circle, right? I looked at it from a strategic standpoint and said, it makes sense because this guy's got horsepower, and I work with subcontractors. I hire contractors to build my jobs and then mentor them and work with them to bring the product back, bring the product to completion. And
yeah.
during COVID, I was struggling to find people that were available that were capable of producing some of these large projects. So he basically offered me access to his huge team. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I can run my company, bring projects there, have them build there, and then sell work for him too. It'd be kind of double dipping. It's going to be great, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
And really, it truly is an amazing blessing to be involved with this company. Excuse me, so sorry.
Oh, you're
However,
fine.
it's not what it was a distraction for me. I learned a lot, but it was really a distraction because what God really had wanted me to get out of the boat to do was this,
See, okay,
what
so
you
Kyle,
and
that's
I are
what's so
doing.
fascinating to me because I too was in a position a couple years ago where I was doing well. I had an amazing opportunity in front of me. The business was doing good. We had great customers. The cash flow was consistent. Like it was awesome. But and this is what led me to go to Pennsylvania where I met you in the
Yeah.
woods, right? But I too felt like I just wasn't doing the right thing. Like and for me it was an epiphany of like I need to look at life differently, and then I still continued to do the same thing but looked at life differently, and then now it's allowed me to step into other things. And it's weird, and I truly believe that God is guiding me to those things, right?
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that because like I could have just with what I had in that moment, and like with what you had in like right now or before, like just recently with what you have, where you're working, where you're designing, where you could, bring projects in. I mean, you're technically in the same kind of spot. You're successful. You have pretty much everything you need. Same thing. I was successful. I had enough money to live. I could afford vacation. Blah, blah, blah. But God has a bigger purpose for me. And so
Yeah.
to me too, was saying, get out of the boat or put your focus towards something that's going to impact other people and inspire other people. And that's just, it's really interesting because I'm curious to know, I'm hoping that somebody listening to this podcast might also be in a similar situation where they too are, as far as society would grade it, uberly successful. They have their shit together, but there's something missing there where they feel like they're just not contributing to the world, or they're not giving back, or they're not inspiring, or maybe they're seeking for that look in somebody's eyes when you make a difference in their life, and they're not right now getting that because they're just going through the motions. So for
Right.
anybody listening, this might be like a light bulb in your mind, like, hey, maybe I need to make this jump. Maybe I need to jump the boat like what Kyle did, and kind of in a way like what I did. I mean, there's a lot of power in that. And like in Kyle's situation, God made it pretty difficult towards the end there. Wouldn't you say? Like you said, doors were starting to shut on you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fascinating.
So it the discomfort was it was an awful time of my life. and I'm a very even-keeled, well-adjusted person, but there were days where I just said to
Yeah.
myself, the anxiety and the stress was so high. And I remember one day I was driving down one of the roads, and one of the back roads. I was in a older F-350 diesel. I'm cruising along, and I was just so rageful. And that's not me. I'm like, man,
Uh-uh.
this problem, that problem, all these problems. And I had been pushing on my steering wheel. Okay. And I'm pushing it forward, and I realized that I bent my steering wheel.
Holy shit.
And I'm like, what in the world? Something's wrong here. This is wrong. So
Wow.
looking back, so there's something important that needs to be said is that a couple things. Number one, I think God honors a grateful heart. Okay. So what what I can tell you without any doubt, hesitation in at all, that when I started picking my 10 things a day, I realized that after 10 days of doing it, now for the softer people, it's going to be 20 days to get to your 100 things. All right. When I got to that point, I realized that I was spending my time looking for the things to be grateful for the next day. So I was looking all day for those things to be grateful for to acknowledge the next day. And without changing the position of my stature one bit, I went from being half empty to half full. My perspective shifted. And when people have this mindset that, oh, it's never going to get any better, I can't find help. It's never going to get any better. I have to work 80 hours a week. It's never going to get any better. Or, man, I just can't seem to make my connection with my wife work. It's never going to get any better. Well, that's bullshit. Okay? That's bullshit. Your perspective is limiting. You're limiting your opportunity to grow.
Mm.
And by merely adding the gratitude portion, you change your perspective to saying my glass is now half full. Instead of your eyes being down, now your eyes are up. And it's not great right now, but you know what? It can only get better from here. It gives you the opportunity to grow. I
The
have
power in that, dude. It's
so
powerful.
so many
It's like an ooh.
miraculous things happen after I did that. I'll bullet point things. Payroll every week. Sometimes, when you've got a big team of guys and your payroll is almost 50 grand a week, all right, cash flow is big, right?
Yeah.
And there were weeks where I would go to, it's like, I don't know how we're going to cover payroll. I was a cash business too. No credit cards, no lines of credit. It was all cash flow. Don't really advise that for most people, but uh, I would go to, I'm serious. It's very stressful. I would go to my mailbox and I would take checks out, and it would come to the penny for what we needed for that week. Provision, God's grace. God
God's
giving me
grace.
what I need, even though I
Yeah.
haven't asked for it. I
Wow.
had an insurance audit one time that came back. We had done some state work. I don't remember the details, but I owed I don't know, it was like 45 or $50,000 in this audit. And I'm like, and they're going to cancel everything unless we pay, and everything's, oh my gosh. What am I going to do? I went to my hill, I picked my 10 things, and I left it there. I didn't ask about it. I just left it there. I said, I'm just going to trust that things are going to work out and I'll find a way. And I picked my 10 things. I came down. We got the following week. My agent calls me and says, hey, I don't know what you did, but you have a credit for $30,000 on your insurance policy. What are you talking about? They found an error and you've been overpaying for the last year. And that the
Unreal.
audit was not accurate, and you actually have a credit of 30,000. You don't have to make payments for the next 3 months.
Holy cow.
I mean, and those are just the little things. I mean,
That's insane.
incredible stuff. But there's something important about to be said about passion, right? I think that if you're an entrepreneur, you have this passion, you've got drive and passion. And anybody that's in business for themselves are probably pretty good at selling an idea, all right? If you're not good at selling an idea, chances are you should take a job working for somebody, right? Because
Yeah, right.
you got to sell your good or your worth or your product or your knowledge or intellect, whatever it is that you're selling, you've got to be able to deliver and sell it, right?
Damn
Before you
right.
even
Yeah.
deliver, you've got to be able to sell the concept, right? The problem with that is we're also very good at selling ourselves on good ideas, right? That maybe aren't so good, right? So, I need to start a company and we're gonna start painting houses, and they rush out and do something because they feel passionate about it and they feel oh, this is it. I'm gonna,
Sure.
and
So passion can get you in trouble, kind of
passion
too.
can get you in trouble. Discernment and wisdom is what takes you down the road long distance. I'm guilty of being very passionate about things. I've had so many different businesses. I can't even tell you, from apartment buildings to laundromats, remodeling stuff, to a farm, to an organic farm, to a agritourism venue, to tree farm, to I mean, all these different things. I had a pawn store. I've had all these different businesses. And the truth is though all of them were a blessing. They all taught me a lot. They all were truly a distraction from what God really wants me to do. He's calling me to do this. So when I accepted this role with this team, I passionately looked at it and said, it makes sense. I did pray about it. I felt peace about it. But what I found is that I didn't have favor there. I was running, it was harder. I spend, it's like, it would be 10x. My effort would be 10x there than it is when I was in my own lane, right? Like to sell a backyard paradise for somebody, it would take 10 times the amount of time that I normally would, and it would take away from my ability to do this. That's why you
Mm,
don't see me
yeah.
posting anymore. I haven't been on your show yet because I've been so busy here that I haven't been able to do what God's really calling me to do, and that's this. And though it's a disappointment to that company for me to be shifting, I'm not leaving. I'm just changing my role. So I'm not involved with the day to day, so that I can still be an active participant, offer value, leadership if needed, bring customers in and out, help them when needed, but I can stay in my lane and really pour into this. And that whole thing about, value and monetizing, the leadership and the mentorship that I do with people, I'm not worried about. Why? Because I know that this is what I'm called to do, and God is aligning me with people like yourself and our
Amen.
tribe. We've got this amazing tribe. We're so blessed that provision will come from it. I'm not worried about it at all. And so I can tell you that, um, and to the listeners that are at that crossroad where they're like, I just don't know which way to go. Labor's so hard, can't find workers, stress is high, costs are up. I don't really know where to go. Start picking your 5 things, write them down every day. Give yourself credit for the amazing things that you do because you truly are a rock star. You get up and you
Wow.
make things happen and you lead. And though you've got these responsibilities and you're struggling, doesn't discredit the fact that you are a leader. People look to you for guidance and wisdom. And you need to make sure that your center and your core is good so that you can give them what they need to have the confidence to go home and say, yeah, I believe in what I'm doing here. I mean, you need to give yourself credit for those things that you do. And then you really need to dial in and surround yourself with people that will level you up. We hear people talking about that all the time. And I don't think a lot of people really understand the true meaning of it. And we've talked about this, you're the
Yeah,
sum total of the five people you spend the most time with. And,
100%.
out of the hundreds and hundreds of people I have in my life and in my circles, right? The people that I spend the most time with, the people that I look forward to, I mean, I love them all. I love everyone in my life, but the people that I look to spend time with are the people that inspire me to do better, because everyone else is really looking to me and taking from me. So who is pulling me up, right?
So something that you just said that really caused me to think was level up the people in your lives.
Yep.
And similarly to that, we need to level up our thoughts. And by taking the time each morning to think about what we're grateful for, that's in a way leveling up your thoughts. And
100%.
just like you said, when you level up the people you surround yourself with, it increases your output, increases your trajectory, it increases your ability. When you when you upgrade your thoughts, same thing. You can get,
Right.
it's almost like in the morning you're downloading software onto your brain. It's like, okay, I'm taking the time right now to center myself, to bring myself down to earth, and to realize how freaking blessed I am and how much abundance and opportunity is out there. Because when you go through life with that kind of a mindset, all of a sudden the flat tire on the way to work, or the employee that doesn't show up, or the contract that gets canceled, or whatever it may be, is a blessing instead of a roadblock. And it's just like, how do we use this to move forward? And dude, I'm not gonna, like, I think in the past I've underestimated what that exercise has done for my life. I think one of the biggest things that I've incorporated into my life over the last 2 to 4 years, and probably the thing that's affected my trajectory the most, is the exercise that you're talking about. And it's just because what happens, at least for me, is I did what you told me to. Every single day I would do 10 things. Yeah. And then after a while, just being frank, I didn't do it every single day. But the thing about it is your brain gets in the habit of thinking. And like you said, after a while, you start to run out of things to write down. And then you're going through the day and it's like, what am I going to write down tomorrow? So then it's almost like training. It's like I was saying, that software, it's like training your brain to just look at the world in a more appreciative and abundant point of view. And it literally, it gives you more energy. It gives you more direction. It gives you more focus. It gives you more determination. It gives you more drive. I mean, all that. It's just, there's so much value in that. And I think it all stems from just the way that society has set up life. Like, there's so many things in life that bog us down and make us compare ourselves to others, and, and make us feel insignificant. And when we do what you're saying, literally take the time to focus, put attention towards what we have in our lives, why we're so blessed, it's just invigorating. It's another source of energy.
So it's true. It's so true. So there's a lot. We can really talk a long time about this stuff, because this exercise can be. So I've morphed it a lot, right? I'm at the pro, self-proclaimed. I'm at the pro level. Okay, you guys
Hell
all
yeah.
are rookie amateurs, and everyone that talks about gratitude obviously heard me talk about it on a podcast. I take ownership over this as an original concept. All right.
Hell yeah.
Tony Robbins can send me his check, whenever he
Yeah.
wants, But now what I do is different. So this is really cool. So I'll spin through it real quick. So
No, I'm
so
excited to hear it.
you're picking your five things. You're giving credit to your wins. You do that every day. Okay. Once you've done that for a while, and you feel like it's getting a little boring in there. Okay. That's when you go to the next level, which is every day you Secret Santa, or you pay it forward to somebody random every day. Okay. Cup of coffee, pay for a tank of gas, just something very, very basic, whatever you want to do. Whatever, and it has to be somebody that total stranger. And you start implementing that in your day every day. Now, that's something that my kids and I have done for 20 years. Okay. like prolifically.
Just a random act of kindness,
Random act of kindness.
basically.
You know, you're at the convenience store, just pick up the tab for somebody behind you, pick up the tab for somebody in front of you. You're at a diner, and it's great to do with your kids, okay? And I'll tell you this real quick story. My two kids and myself were in a diner. This is how I started my farm. I'm not going to go into all that. That'll be the next episode. But we were
Heck
in a
yeah.
diner, and there was a group of a family in the booth next to us, and my kids were real young. My daughter was probably maybe 5 at the time, and my son was, just like 2. Um, and this diner had 3 boys, and they all seemed to be, they could have been triplets. They were all right around the same age, and they're, same age as my daughter, and they're carrying on, and my daughter's eavesdropping, and the guy, the kids are like, Dad, can we get ice cream? Can we get ice cream? And he kind of cracked at him a little bit and very curtly said, "No, we don't have enough money for ice cream. We're lucky we're eating out tonight. Just let it go." And it just was, you could feel the negative energy, right? And my
Yeah.
daughter, who's got these blue eyes like this big, right? She turns and she looks at me and she says, "Dad, what does that mean they don't have enough money for ice cream?" Now, I have made every bad dad. I've got a list of bad dad moments about 200,000 items long, okay? And I'm like, I can't screw this up. I got to really give her something that's not going to, I don't want her to be anxious about money at 5. So I basically said, we teach you kids that you are to share all of what you have with everyone, not just some people some of the time.
Mm.
And actually, I said, yeah, that's how it went. We teach kids to share everything you have with everyone, not just something some of the time. And every year Santa comes and he gives you gifts. All right. No, I'm all out of whack on this one. Sorry. So,
No, you're
we teach
good.
your kids to share everything, with everyone. And then I said, and sometimes we have extra and sometimes we don't, you know. This week we have a little extra, so it really wouldn't be fair not to share it with them. So I gave
Yeah.
her some money. I said, go find the waitress, tell her here's some money for their dinner, and then make sure they all get ice cream. She can keep the change and come back. So she does this and she comes back and she's on cloud 9, right? She's so excited. And she's like, we have to tell him, we have to tell him, we have to tell him. I said, no. I said, this is where Santa comes in. I said, we're not going to, because what Santa does every year is he gives to you because he loves you, not because he expects anything in return. I said, so
Mm.
we're going to give to them because we love them, even though we don't even know them. And we're going to show them the respect that they deserve by quietly getting up and leaving. And we did that, and it started this feverish tradition in our family to where
Mm.
everywhere we go, we always try to bless someone else. Ironically, when money's tight, I always will have enough to bless somebody else. Always.
Always.
And
Wow.
it always comes back to where I have enough the next day to do it again. And I have enough the next day to do it again. And the next day and the next day. So stage two of your 5-day gratitude. I'm sorry I messed that story up. I haven't told that story in years.
No,
Um,
man, you did great.
you you pick somebody to Secret Santa every day, and you just start doing that. All right, and you don't say anything. If you got kids and you can do it with your children, and they can be involved, like they pick the person. Now you're talking super stuff right there. That's superpower
Yeah.
stuff. So
Wow.
teaching your kids the gift of giving without the expectation of return is very important in today's society, because our society just takes, right?
Yeah,
So it's
that's
okay
valuable, man.
to freely give.
Wow.
So then
That's so valuable.
you got level 2, all right? So pro level 2. Now you're at that pro level, right? Pro level 2 is every day, once you've picked your 5 things, you write down your list of your wins for the day. Then you think about somebody in your life that has been a blessing to you. And it can be somebody very random. It can be somebody that you just met briefly. But everyone that you cross paths with in your life is a touch point. It creates a ripple in your trajectory, right? And even the most insignificant relationships. And what I do is every day God puts one, sometimes two, sometimes three people on my heart. And I wholeheartedly lift them up and thank God for them as blessings in my life and pray for them a little bit for whatever they're doing. And then I call them. And I've called you
Mm,
many times because you've
yeah.
been my guy many times. And
Wow.
and and it's always best if it's just an answering machine, quite frankly. And sometimes I'll do it with a text. I'll just simply say, "Hey, haven't talked to you in years. I just want you to know I was thinking about you. I'm proud of you. I love you. I lifted you up today. I hope things are good." You know, and that's it. And sometimes if I'm feeling the need to speak into their life, I'll do that. And it usually is, something to the fact that you are more than enough and you are worthy, you know. And
And just for anybody listening, I can literally, Kyle is not lying one single bit here. Not that anybody would think he would be, but you have done this multiple times for me, Kyle. And forgive me for not remembering, but one of the last times you did this, I was going through just one of the roughest days I've probably had in the last 5 years. And it just came at the perfect time. And
that's
there's
good.
no doubt in my mind that God did that,
Yeah.
that he reached out and said, "Hey, Mike needs some help," and
Yeah.
dude, thank you so much for doing that. Seriously.
I appreciate the feedback, and it's my honor to do that, to take that time and to be able to do those things. So, and this is something that when you live a grateful life and you're living a faith forward life, God will use you to impact other people. So then
I
the
believe that.
final thing, so that's every day you're picking your five, you're writing down your win, you're being a blessing to somebody, okay? You're paying it forward. You're thinking of somebody, you're lifting them up and touching base with them. And if it's too uncomfortable, you don't have to reach out and call them. But I do try to make note of it. I'm not that good at keeping my notes anymore, but and
Sure.
then the last final one, and this is the best one. And this one I robbed from 75 Hard. Okay. The final one is you have to have an intentional conversation with a total stranger every day.
I like that.
Just walk up to somebody and start having a conversation with them with intention every day. And I'll tell you something, that is really, it's awesome. And it's only really possible to fulfill that if you've done at least the gratitude section of the journey, because there's so much social awkwardness today. Like, for instance, my stepdaughter would never in a million years do something like that. Okay, that's just weird. Why would you do that? I'm not going to do that. We'd never do that.
Yeah, like talk to somebody that I don't know. What do you mean?
But I'll tell you
Yeah,
something.
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
It's awesome. And who gives a shit what they think, right? Just go
Yeah.
and just do it. But so that's my
Powerful stuff.
yeah, that's my daily ritual that I try to, share with other people. So,
So a question for you, Kyle. When you're
yeah.
thinking of somebody who has been a blessing to you, has it ever happened that you think of somebody who like that maybe hurt you, or you know something that they did that at the time when they did it, it didn't seem right, but then now you're grateful for that? Like, have you ever thought of anybody?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
does that happen ever?
So when people, in your life have done you wrong and they've wronged you or they've hurt you, a lot of people carry those offenses with them. And, what an offense really is it becomes a fence, all right? An offense
Wow, I've
is,
never
is
thought of it like
literally
that. Holy shit.
like a physical fence, and it's separating from you from, well, their ability to hurt you, right? Which is sometimes very important, but it also prevents you from crossing over and helping them.
And loving
So,
them. Yeah.
and loving them.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, you can separate yourself in a healthy way from people. Well, and if I don't want to get too deep. With people that are in abusive relationships and things like that.
Sure.
This is
Sure.
not where we're talking about. But in general, offenses, people that have done things, you can separate yourself, and you don't need to keep them within arm's reach in your life. You can separate them, but by eliminating that offense on your side opens the door for opportunity for healing for these people, an opportunity for reconciliation, because oftentimes people get offended and they don't even realize the other person is offended. The other person doesn't even realize they've offended them, you know?
Right.
So,
True.
I mean,
True.
relationships can get severed over the stupidest things and families divided so I don't care about that. I just reach out. You know, there are people that have toxic traits um, that are unhealthy to be in my circle. That I stay connected with. I reach out to them and I check in on them. Hey, just thinking of you, checking in. But I keep them at arm's distance because I got to protect myself. And I know that
Yeah.
you you have to protect yourself because I'm the only thing my family's got, and I can't let somebody pull me down, you know. So,
For
and
sure.
that and what happens when you shift your mindset to leveling up is that you find that a lot of those relationships that you may hold dear to in your life and those friendships and those employees that are friends that, you know, abuse things a little bit, you find that though once you start leveling yourself up, those relationships kind of fade away and they change. They're still there, you're still part of their lives, but you're not hanging out. You're not going to the bar, having beers, you're not hanging out. And that's a normal cycle, of life. And so a lot of people are afraid to grow because where they feel they really want to be because they're afraid of leaving people behind.
Yeah. I can see
And
that.
and I see it a lot in landscape companies where younger companies start out and they have their buddies working for them and they're all working together or family and they're all working together and the company starts to grow. And when you start to grow, well, you have to start having standards and you have to have infrastructure and you have to have systems. And if one person's got to show up on time, if you're asking everyone to be there on time, well, everyone's got to be there on time. And it'll always be your friends, your buddies, and your family that push the limits. And then you create unbalance, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm probably speaking to you in some regard on this. I mean, it happens. You have
Yeah,
staff.
throughout the start of the business,
Yeah,
fucking right, man. There, and it's a weird bridge to cross because you go from that point of it's like let's all work together to
right.
get this going. This is a new opportunity, and then yeah, you have to start to create that like rigidness and
Yeah.
people in their places and distinct responsibilities, and it's like it's not they're not easily
Yeah.
waters to swim, but I mean
No,
it's yeah for sure
it's very, very challenging. And when you have family dynamics, it's extremely challenging.
for
Um,
sure.
there's something else I wanted to share with you that I came out of this with. Through this all these years, I always felt like I was carrying the weight by myself. My prior marriage was for 22 years, and she's a good person, and we weren't on the same page, and spiritually, and multiple other things, but primarily, a lot of it is from the reason why our relationship failed was because I didn't realize the strain that my passion for entrepreneurship put on our relationship. I didn't realize it. And in my mind, I thought, well, I don't understand why, it's such a big deal. Why is it such a big deal? I'm working my ass off to provide and put a roof over our heads do all these things, take trips. I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because as men, we're hunter gatherers, right? We're out
Yeah,
there
yeah.
hunting and gathering. That's what we do. And what I failed to recognize early enough in my relationship was that none of that mattered. All she ever really wanted was me. And so, I
Wow.
don't have regret, okay, for where I'm at now because I carry a little bit of regret because it put my kids through a really tough situation, the whole process as they've
But
gotten
even that,
older.
Kyle, real quick,
Yeah.
can I
Yeah.
interrupt for a second? And I know we've talked about this about how
Yeah.
everything in our life is there to serve us, and I'm sure your kids might not even be at the age yet where they would admit this to you, but I'm sure at some point in their life they're going to look back and, like, for me, for instance, my parents, when they got divorced, I went through all that. I'm
Yeah.
sure they have a lot of regret that goes along with that. But if I could redesign my life, I would not design it in any different way. Like, I'm
Right.
grateful for all those tribulations that I had to go through, or the friction. So don't hold on to that regret. And you're a super wise man, so I'm
Right.
preaching to the choir right now, but maybe have a conversation with them and just, you might
Yeah.
be surprised to hear, or maybe you already have, that they're actually grateful for that because it's made them stronger and more able to get through the hardships of life.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we do. I have this philosophy with my children. My kids are all older, so I have two stepkids, 24-year-old stepson, 21-year-old daughter. My daughter's 21, and my son just graduated high school, so he's going to be 18 here coming up.
Awesome. What a blessing.
So, they're older. They're older pains in the asses, and no, I don't mean that seriously, but they're great. They're all
Gotta drop that
individuals.
in there.
They're all individuals, and they're all incredible. They really are. We're very lucky. But they did have the friction, and there are moments where that shows up in their. Where there's that, but they both acknowledge that, where their mom and I are now in our lives are much better. So what I wanted to say was, and don't let me forget to tell you about my son Will and what he shared with me. But what I was going to say is that all those years of marriage, I was carrying all this weight and carrying all this stuff alone and these monstrative tasks, and I just felt like I was just by myself, you know. Well, once, after the divorce, I had no intentions of ever getting married again. Ever, ever, ever. I'm good by myself. I'm very happy by myself. I don't need that. I don't need a relationship. And then I met Michelle, who is this amazing, amazing person and single mom, just a stinking rock star person. And I changed. I mean, I can't imagine my life without her at all. I mean, it's
Mm.
it's just been, again, an incredible blessing. So we recently did 75 hard, and which I strongly encourage everyone to try.
Yeah,
Um,
amazing job, by the way.
we did that back in January. In Rochester, the weather's shit in the winter. Okay, so that's it's snowing and raining and sub-zero and miserable and working all day. And the inside workout's easy, but you got to do a 45-minute outside workout. And one day I'm laying in bed. It was a torrential downpour, gale force winds, like 32 degrees, and we got to go walk for 45 minutes outside. And we
Yeah.
were only like 5 days in at this point. And I'm like, you know what? The investment isn't that great right now. Let's just skip it today and we'll start again tomorrow. We're only 5 days in. I'm laying in bed. I'm exhausted, right? And you know what she said to me? She's like, "Get your ass up, Stevens. Nobody likes a punk ass bitch."
I
Okay.
love it, man.
I
She's
got up
perfect
and
for you.
she is. She's a stinging rock star. So coming through this, I realized that, wait a minute, I've got this partner, and those tough, difficult tasks in life, they're not so bad when we do them together. They're not so
Mm.
bad when we're carrying the weight together. So if you're carrying the weight and you've got a wife at home or a husband at home or whatever, and you gotta share. You gotta carry the load together. And
Ooh.
it was a huge takeaway for me. So
Carry the
yeah,
load together. Gosh, I really
carry the
like
load
that.
together. Yeah, that was great.
So, man, Kyle, thanks so much. You brought so many. I mean, I've got notes upon notes here. I mean, just you have such an amazing story. I mean, the fact that like at one time you were going down the road so frustrated and overwhelmed, you literally bent your steering wheel. I mean,
Yeah,
that it just goes to show what you're going through, and I think so many people can relate. They might not actually be at the point where they're literally bending it, but they're
right.
they feel like bending their steering wheel, and then how you learned and self-taught yourself to just step back and be grateful, and that exercise is just so powerful, and I really challenge everybody listening to this to try it because it's done so much for me. It's done obviously so much for Kyle. I've told a lot of people about it. Like if you know, being that I have this podcast, people and I'm doing this self-development stuff, people oftentimes will come up to me with their problems. And one of the first things I will tell them is, hey, my buddy Kyle taught me this. Take some time
Yeah,
and just count your blessings. And I think you poised it well this on this episode about how it's literally it's an exercise that allows you to just change your mindset. It changes it from a glass half empty to a glass half full, and
yeah,
there's so much value in that. That's the abundance versus the scarcity mindset in itself.
yeah,
When you believe that everything is there, that God is behind you, that anything that you would ever need is available, and that you can learn from every experience. When you go through life with that kind of a mindset, you're unstoppable.
yeah,
But whereas when you are caught up and too focused on what expectations rather than appreciation, it's so easy to get bogged down and then just feel like crawling into a ball and going into your bed and just not doing anything and just not
right.
showing up the way that God wants you to show up. So man, there's just so much value in that. And I mean, this has got to be one of my favorite episodes so far. Now that we're getting down towards the end, Kyle, at the end of each episode, I always like to, and it's goofy because to be honest, I haven't had many episodes where there's so many things that people can take from it. But this episode, there's a million. But is there anything else, or is there any common theme before we jump off of here that you would like to leave the listeners with that they can take out into the day and just use and maybe reflect on? Maybe it's just to do your
Yeah.
exercise, but
Well,
speak
sure.
on that if you would.
So, you know, in life, you know, people wonder if this stuff really, if it really works. It's a bunch of nonsense. But the reality is that the storms of life are going to come regardless. We're going to have storms. You're going to have tough times. You're going to have disappointments, and you're going to have tough times. But if you root your feet and you plant your feet, you build your foundation on the rock, okay, and being grateful and acknowledging the good things in your life, okay,
Mm,
you're still going to go through the storm, and you may have some damage, but you know what? It's not going to be that bad. Those problems, that anxiety begins to roll off your back like water. But if you go through life without that foundation and gratitude, and you just are looking and always expecting something, okay,
oh my gosh.
then what you're doing is you're planting your feet in the sand. And what happens is when that storm comes, that same storm, it washes you completely away, and you're left with nothing. And so something as simple as just being grateful for these things and acknowledging them as gifts, that's the first step towards planting your feet on a solid foundation. And you deserve it. Everyone listening to this deserves having that certainty in their life, right? Because life is full of uncertainty. We're all striving for certainty. Your family, your children, your husband, your wife, they expect certainty from you. And by rooting your feet there in that solid foundation, you're able to give them that because you will be more present. Your tank won't be empty at the end of the day. You'll be able to pour into their lives and serve them the way that you're called to serve them as a head of your household. And through that becomes leadership. You become a servant leader, and where you are leading through positive actions, not just the works of your hands, but through positive life actions. And that's it. And
Wow.
if I'm sure you'll share information, contacts, and things like that. And anybody that ever
I was just
wants
going to
that,
say,
yeah.
how can people find you, Kyle?
They can email me at Kyle, Kyle, at stonewoodandwaters.com, stonewoodandwaters, waters.com. They can find me on Facebook, Kyle D. Stevens. You can message me.
Awesome. Okay.
However you want to.
And we're obviously
LinkedIn.
mutual friends on Facebook, so
Yeah.
anybody can find through my friend list. You know how Facebook goes. There's probably
Yeah.
8,000 Kyle Stevens out there. So,
Yeah.
but no, if
Well, there's only one me.
but there's only one you. Amen. Dude, you wrapped up so many nuggets for me and for our listeners today. I mean, so many of the things that you talk about and you hold close to your heart, I also have incorporated in my life. And just what you talked about there at the end about how when you operate from a place of gratitude, you're basically standing on a solid foundation. But when you're operate from a place of expectations or what's next or what don't I have, you pretty much operate from a sandy foundation. And the second something comes through that you weren't expected, or if you're an entrepreneur, which obviously if you're an entrepreneur, you're setting yourself up for a stressful life because you just have so much going on. If you're living that kind of a lifestyle and you are on a sandy foundation, you're going to lose your mind, and there's just so much value in that gratitude. I firmly believe that's one of the most important things in life, is just realizing how every single moment is a blessing. Great, man. Once again, thanks for coming on, Kyle. So many nuggets on here, and I know you alluded to it earlier in the episode. I definitely plan on having you back on here as many times as possible. So we'll keep in touch, as we continue to do professional development together, like with Tony Robbins Enterprises, stuff like that. We'll have to make sure to hop back on here and share any of the new nuggets that we've learned or anything like that. But once again, thanks for your time today, Kyle.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's an honor, and I am so proud of everything that you're doing. I'm just so impressed, and I just see incredible things in your future. I'm really, really honored to be a part of your life.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kyle. Right back at you.
Yeah.
Hey, and I truly, sincerely appreciate that. Of all people on this planet, I value your opinion more than a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Kyle, another thing you're an amazing person at is prayer. If you don't mind, can we end the episode today with a prayer?
Yeah. Sure. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this opportunity to come together and fellowship and share stories and experiences. Father, we just ask that you would use them as you see fit in the lives of those listeners that are taking part in this podcast. Father, we just hope that we would be able to speak light and life into their lives and pass on some hope for a better tomorrow. Father, we lift up their problems, their struggles, their worries and concerns, and we just pray that your will be done in their lives. That your will be done in their lives. Father, we pray over this podcast and everything that Mike is doing with his family and his business. Father, we just pray for prosperity, blessing, and provision in all things that he touches. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right.
Well, thank you for that.
You got it.
That was another episode of the Michael Maloney Show. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.